Captain, we have them! We've established Transporter Lock, the Star Trek podcast. Join Ken and Sabriel each week as they explore strange new episodes, seek out new plots and new characters, and boldly go where no podcast has gone before.
Hello and welcome to Transporter Lock. I am Captain Sabriel Maston and sitting here surfing between two black holes with my chief engineer, Ken Gagney. Hello, Ken.
I'm feeling a lot of tension today. I'm being pulled in a lot of different directions, and I think you just explained for me why. So thank you. I now have that context. I was wondering what was going on.
It's a good place to hide out, park, whatever, just sit between two primordial black holes.
Like you do, I mean, if you don't want anybody to pay attention to you, just stand between two more interesting people, I guess.
We are here to talk about some Star Trek Discovery. Before that, I have like one piece of Star Trek news that are off the top of my head. Principal filming for Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3 ended like a few days ago. So they were sharing their pictures or joys, the cast and crew on the internet. No spoilers, just them saying, "Hey, we're done. Cool. All right. Now to it. Summer off or whatever."
How interesting. For some reason, not that I had heard to the contrary, but I just assumed they were already done filming because they've been renewed for a fourth season. The third season is supposed to air sometime this year. Granted, they haven't given us a date, but still, all the facts to me suggested that this thing is in the can.
Oh. No. So, well, now it is. The filming part, anyway. Now we got to add on the CG and the editing and the fun stuff.
Sure, there's still a lot that needs to happen, but it's interesting. One thing I never really understood concretely or like consciously about video game production is why so many early licensed video games were terrible, like Back to the Future, for example. And that's because a movie can be shot in a month, but a video game takes like a year and a half to 2 years to make. And so if a movie's under production, they license it out and they say like, we want the game to come out with the movie, the video game production has to be cut so much because a TV show, as you just said, like there's still a lot that needs to be done, but the grist of it is done. Like the hard part of getting the actors into one place at the same time can be done. And the rest that still needs to be done is also hard, but it's more asynchronous and just like do it in a month or two and off you go.
Yeah, plus in the old days, like I think they would just give them some screenshots and brief synopsis and say, "Hey, we're make a video game off of it, but we're not actually going to tell you what the movie's about."
Right. They just had to guess.
My mind goes to Back to the Future 1 and 2, the Nintendo game, and the music is as he's skating up down the street for no reason.
Yeah. I mean, there was a skating scene in the movie, but not really what the movie was about. But I wonder what they would have done differently. Like if they had gotten to see the movie or read the script, would they have just still made a crappy game?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, and you know what? Actually, it was Back to the Future 1 and 2. That means I'm not going to go into it. We have a lot to cover today.
That's true.
Some of the longest trek we've got going on.
That is true. Wait, was it a single game that had 1 and 2?
I think, yeah, Back to the Future 1 and 2, if I recall correctly. It might have been 2 and 3, but I'm pretty sure it was 1 and 2.
It was 2 and 3. Because 2 and 3, the movies were shot together.
Right.
So they made the game together.
Yeah, I could have sworn it was 1 and 2. Anyway. We are here to talk about Back to the Future 1 and 2. No, we are here to talk about Lagrange Point and life itself, the series and season and series finale of Star Trek Discovery. I think we should just get right into it.
Yeah, I almost don't have much to say about the Lagrange Point because I have so much to say about life itself. But I will say Lagrange Point at the time of its airing was probably my favorite episode of the season.
Yeah, there's a lot of action. I've watched this episode. I try to watch all the episodes twice, and this season it hasn't gone as well this much, but this time I made time for it. At Lagrange Point, with the context of the second episode, a lot happened, but not a lot happened. You know what I mean? Like, there was a lot of good action to set up the series or the season finale. We've got, but I would agree with this. Probably it was a lot of fun. We get Adira on a mission. We get Discovery shoving itself into the people always give Discovery crap about having their cargo bay doors open. And out here, we have the cargo bay doors open on the Breen Dreadnought, and Discovery just flies right into it, which is a really fun shot. Is there anything you want to talk about Lagrange Point?
I will say that I was on edge for most of the episode. It really reminded me of a game of, say, Metal Gear Solid, of just like sneaking around and hoping you don't get caught. And their ability to blend in was really impressive with their replicated suits and the like. It does harken back to a point I think you made in a previous podcast about how do all the Breen tell each other apart? And the answer is they don't. As long as you're wearing the right clothes, they don't know who you are, nor do they care.
Right. Like we finally kind of got a little answer. Like, how do you know who's who? And they were able to just change their or their badge. Like, oh, I'm scientist. Switch up the little triangle or diamond.
Yep.
But that's about it. Yeah, they don't know. And so much to the point where like they all just ask around, hey, you want to go with me to the ceremonial oil pits and or oil baths for our Thanksgiving, Breen Thanksgiving. And that was a lot of fun.
I loved their interactions with the Breen. I loved, again, a point you brought up, Michael Burnham is a xenolinguist, which comes into play in this episode. She's able to fill in the blanks and figure out what people are saying, even without a complete translation. I was curious, how do they switch between speaking English to each other and speaking Breen to the Breen?
I thought about that too. My brain was just like, we just tilt our heads slightly to the bottom left and it goes back into like intercom versus
right. I was kind of waiting for a moment where they were trying to talk to each other and accidentally got sent to the Breen. We're like, no, that wasn't for you. That was like wrong chat window. Sorry.
And being the Breen, they probably do have something like that, like a private chat or work Slack versus business or personal Slack, just hanging out, talking to your coworkers.
They must or something. I don't know. One thing that frustrated me was there was a moment where Michael and Book stepped aside because Michael wanted to confess to him, her feelings. And I'm like, this is not a new trope to Discovery. They were doing this, especially back in season 2's finale. But like, this is not the time and place to talk. And I wouldn't mind since it is something they've done before, but later in the episode, they're just about to put the translock onto the portal and they get caught by Maul at the last second. And I was like, hey, you know where you could have found another 30 seconds to get that done if you hadn't chatted about your feelings.
Yeah. Right when it happened, I'm like, oh no, not again. Like, it was a good moment. It just didn't need to be right. Did it? I could see why thematically why it might have fit to be right here, but God, it stands out so much in Discovery because they keep doing it.
Right. Like, where else in the episode could they have done it? Before they went on the away mission, I guess? I mean, like, they said, like, this is a terrible idea, but it's the best one we got. We leave in 10 minutes. I'm like, okay, use those 10 minutes right now. And also, when they were preparing to leave, Adira was walking down the hall wearing their Breen outfit, chatting with their space dads. And then they're ready and they tap the transporter and off they go. And I think I've mentioned this before, but where were you going down the hall? Why were you walking when you're just going to transport from wherever you are anyway? I mean, okay, this is the West Wing. We're doing a walk and talk. I get it. But just stand there, just talk to each other, and then beam away.
Yeah, I mentioned like some of the problems with the personal transporters before. It's like now we lose the turbo lift moment. We lose the walk and talk. We lose the transporter who's beaming onto the Love Boat this week. Effect that like Next Gen and all these and Voyager had. We lose that now. And like when you think about the weird oddities like that scene and how they would actually be quote unquote in real life versus now, it was a little odd. Hey, all right, we're on a mission. We're waiting for our other dad to get up here. Let's just walk for a moment. Like
right. Let's make it harder for the other dad to find us. Let's keep moving. When one of you is lost, keep moving.
But see, like, yeah, it's like they had to work around like this is natural for us to walk and someone joins us, even in like real life and you're on a ship or so. It just feels like natural. So they keep doing it, even if it really wouldn't work in real life like that anymore. But I guess these sacrifices we have to make when we write ourselves like this.
Yeah. But I was glad, as you said, that Adira went on a mission. I thought it was really cool. I thought that Tilly having a vote of confidence in Adira was timely and appropriate given Tilly's role as an instructor. And Adira handled themselves capably. And was it uh, Commander Reese, Lieutenant
Yeah.
Reese?
Reese. I think they're all basically, yeah, Lieutenant Commander Reese.
Yeah. I liked seeing him just leap over the panel and go hand to hand with the Breen.
Yeah, who is this guy? All right.
It reminded me of Sulu in the 2009 movie when he said, "I'm trained in hand-to-hand combat," and they're like, "Great, what kind?" He's like, "Fencing." But when they went down to the orbital mining platform, he handled himself quite well, and it
Uh-huh.
sort of reminded me of that.
Did you think that anyone might die in this?
Did I think that anyone might die?
Yeah. Or, something grave happened. Let's just put it that way. Did that thought occur to you at all? Like, is this because knowing that it's a season/series finale, did that thought come to you at all?
Not really, because I know when they shot this part of the ending, they didn't know they were being canceled.
Mhm.
And looking at who went on the away mission, like, I didn't think Book was going to die because he almost died last season. They brought him back. Clearly, Michael's not going to die because she's the main character. And that leaves who else went on the mission? Was it just the four of them?
Adira and Reese.
Adira, Book,
Yeah.
and Michael? Yeah, of the four of those, like, they're not going to kill Adira. Like, Adira's practically a kid, especially in the context of having two space dads. You don't kill kids on Star Trek, except for that one episode of Strange New Worlds.
I was going to say, but my thought was if they were going to do it, Reese felt like it fit. He was like, I'm going to go battle, and then he was fighting. Like, I didn't necessarily think it was going to happen. My brain went to if it was going to, this is where it would be.
Given how Ariam died, I think if Reese was going to die, they would have given him more screen time before his death.
Good point. This episode would have been one where we find out he has a partner, three kids.
Right. Grew up in a mining colony, attacked by the Breen, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, Saru, it opened up with Saru coming back. Also, we haven't seen him for a few episodes.
Yeah, that was
back
nice.
At Federation HQ and like, hey, what's going on? Everyone seems a little busy.
They're like, oh yeah, you weren't in the last few episodes. Let us catch you up.
Oh, we got to see President Rilke again. We haven't seen her for a while either.
Yeah. Now, this is something I could have looked up, but remind me, she's the president of the Federation?
Yes.
So who is Stacey? What is Stacey Abrams the president of?
Earth.
Earth. Okay. Thank you. I couldn't remember.
She has lived 1,300 years, and she. But yeah, that was her role.
Okay.
Let's see. We kind of skipped over a whole bunch because a lot of it didn't really matter. We find out Tahal, one of the other Primarchs who were going after the Breen throne, is also on her way to see what the hell Primarch Rune was doing. Turns out apparently the voice of that is the same person who does the voice of Princess Zelda.
Oh, in Breath of the Wild?
Yeah.
Huh. I remember.
I can't remember her name.
Patricia Somerset?
Yeah, that's it. There you go.
Huh.
I don't know how the internet found that out, but maybe it was in the credits.
Interesting. It's not in her Wikipedia yet.
Speaking of Wikipedia, apparently someone put a spoiler, well, not spoiler, but someone that morning the episode aired, put the reveal of a certain character we'll talk about in a little bit in the memory alpha right away, changed the picture. And apparently, I don't know the exact rule, but apparently doing it so soon is against the rules. Because I mentioned this to a friend, and it was already changed by the time I mentioned it like an hour or two later.
Oh, good.
Only Trekkies who are really highly attuned to it in that 2-hour span would have been spoiled. Like, it would have been such a unlikely chance someone got spoiled by it, but
Sure. No, but it's understandable that they don't want to put it up too soon and keep it around long enough for people to see it. What did you think about what is in the thing that they rescued from the black holes being a portal?
I figured it was going to be some interdimensional TARDIS type trick, kind of thing like that. I don't know what, like, how about maybe more accurately, it made sense. How about that? Like, I wasn't expecting a device like a traditional. I can hold this in my hand. I can just do this, wave my hands, and do the thing. I wasn't expecting that, even if I didn't know what I was expecting. And so that it was like a TARDIS-like effect, it made perfect sense to me. How about you?
At first, I was confused because I thought maybe the six scientists who found the progenitor technology, just like how they hid it in a wormhole from the mirror universe, they also decided to hide it in an extra dimensional portal. And I thought maybe they had like somehow created it. And I was like,
Mm.
if these six scientists have that level of technology 800 years ago, then what are we doing trying to chase down progenitor technology? Like we're way more advanced than that. So it was a little confusing to me about like where this portal came from, who was responsible for it, why people are getting sucked into it and actually pulling out like the tether from the floor, that it has its own gravitational pull, which I thought kind of weird. But yeah, like once I saw the finale, I guess it made sense.
That they were able to shove it inside a container box is pretty good for 24th century design.
Or yeah, build a box around it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, if we're done with the portal, there was something about this episode that stuck in my mind, which was
Go for it.
I can never remember his name, the commander that's new this season.
Rainer.
Rayner, thank you.
Uh-huh.
He was pacing around the ship a lot, and I have two questions about that behavior. One is Tilly went up to him and said, "You're really making the crew anxious." And he says, "Tilly, the reason I asked you to be my number one is because I trust you. If we were in a foxhole together, I wouldn't kill you unless you kept giving me this saccharine advice that I don't need." And she smiles at him. And do you think what do you think was the feeling she was having behind that smile?
Oh, to me, it was banter.
Okay.
So she was kind of I took it as like I didn't take it as anything other than just friendly banter between them. As kind of acknowledging, like, I hear you, even if your silly ways annoy me, I hear you, but I'm not mad at you for this.
So I said I have two questions. Here's question
Uh-huh.
1.5. Why did Rayner say he didn't need that advice? Because it was annoying him?
No, I just took it as part of the banter, as in uh I didn't take anything there literal. I mean, other than Tilly saying, "Hey, you should sit down. You got this." Him just because he had in the past he had chided her and the crew about being all lovey-dovey family, and to me here it was like resigned acceptance kind of thing, maybe. But I didn't see it as any kind of negative. Well, how about you? Like, how did it come off to you?
Well, I'm not sure. Like, she could have been smiling because she was just like, oh, yeah, this is friendly banter. But she also could have been smiling because, like, wow, this guy is a jerk. And just like sometimes when people confirm what you think of them, you
Yeah, that
can't
can
you,
be.
you can't help but laugh because they're like, I knew it. I knew you were that kind of person. But this also kind of leads into my final question, which is when Rayner was pacing, was he doing that on purpose to set up the moment when he sat down?
As in like an intentional character thought.
Yes, like was he wanting to create a moment where he could demonstrate to the crew, I am your captain, I have accepted this role. Like I could see that being a sort of a well-intentioned manipulation on his part.
Oh, that did not occur to me at all. I saw this as a guy we've already seen in the past few episodes who was already nervous about taking command of someone else's ship. And he didn't want to be seen as, even if he is commander, he didn't want to be seen as in command of someone else's ship. He was just anxious, nervous about that idea, even if he was technically in that role already. And people were already listening to him. That we have seen so many people put so much importance on that chair itself
Yes.
that sitting down there, even to the point where actors coming onto the show playing captains are nervous about sitting in those chairs. Like you see it on Ready Room, like every time, like they talked about it with Shaw in Star Trek Picard, Seven, like everyone is super nervous about the prestige that comes with sitting in a captain's chair. So translate the actor and the characters all feeling this about the importance of sitting in that middle chair. I could see why he was anxious and nervous about doing that and on someone else's ship.
I highly suspect you're right. I'm sure that's what the writers and the actors intended. But I also kind of like my headcanon.
That makes him such a jerk.
I don't know. I think he
That's
is.
such a jerk move.
I don't know that it is. Like he wants to show his crew that he is ready to be their captain. And he is creating a lead up to the moment where he shows that. I don't know that that's necessarily a jerk thing, but let me ask you one more question. Do you think he would have sat in that chair had Tilly said nothing?
I don't think so.
Okay.
You?
Well, again, my headcanon says yes. My headcanon says, Tilly, I don't need this advice from you because I know exactly what I'm doing here. Just wait a minute and you'll see the buildup. You'll see how it plays out.
That
But
doesn't fit the character to me at all.
we've only known him for one season. I don't
Yeah, it
know.
doesn't feel like him.
Maybe is this more of a Lorca thing?
That feels more like a Lorca thing. Yes, when you put it that way. I would say like, and when he finally does it, that was so cool because apparently, because there, Jonathan Frakes and Will Wheaton were talking about it at Ready Room. He was again very nervous about this. He wasn't sure how to do it, and he came up with the smack smack, let's go kind of thing or whatever he says. That was so cool. That also felt so in character.
He should have said, I want the ship to go fast now.
Very nervous. No, I
He-
thought that I loved that finale for the episode.
yeah, no, it was good. Regardless of what was going through the character's mind, I liked it. Like I'm not judging or disparaging either interpretation. I think they're both very effective in different ways. And again, I strongly suspect you are correct. But mine is a bit of a reach, but I don't know. There's something about it I find appealing.
We skipped over a little bit. The breeding, talking, and being friendly with each other. Got a
Yeah.
kick out of book flirting.
Yeah, you mentioned the oil bath, and Michael's like, I love when Book said, do you want to hurry it up? And Michael's like, you sure you don't want me to slow it down? Like, even in
was
this
so
high stakes scenario, they're still finding time for this.
The Star Trek Discovery, I was thought about this last week, that episodes, like they are really good at casual humor or that witty that comebacks in a way that I just love. And even doing the series finale too, part, but I won't get there yet. But just like they are so good at dropping that charm, that teasing but in a loving way humor in the show. I love it. And then the Discovery being taken into the huge cargo bay of the Dreadnought. I don't know. I either saw it coming or I hoped it coming, but it was coming. And then when they started making the plan for it, I was so excited. And I was like, yes. I don't remember which one it was. I was like, saw it coming or hoped it was coming, and then they did it, and I was so happy. That was just such a fun scene. Shoving the ship in there, um, shoving the ship in the hole. Yeah, I see you giggling.
Because I'm 12. However, I thought the plan was go into the cargo bay and put a tractor beam lock on the portal. They seem to have forgotten that last step.
They failed that miserably. I think they mentioned, if I recall correctly, there was too much debris for them to quickly analyze which one it was. I could be one wrong, and two, I've already forgotten two, but I'm just gonna say I'm probably wrong on that. I thought that was two, or something along those lines, and then or plans never succeed first, whatever of the enemy. Yeah, that common phrase, the way I said it exactly. Um, they never survive the first meeting with the enemy or something like that.
I only watched the episode once. If there was a line of communication about how we can't get a lock, I missed it. It just felt like, wait, aren't you engaging the tractor beam? I thought you were doing that. No, it was your job. And everybody just forgot. That's what it felt like to me. And since if they didn't even try, then what was the whole point of going into the cargo bay in the first place? So that scene disappointed me.
Oh. Here. Rayner reveals that Burnham's plan blasts the contents of the shuttle bay into space where Discovery will beam the team on board and recover the structure. They only did one part of that.
But why?
No, maybe they also probably did not plan on it breaking apart.
Well, yes, there's that.
The container that has been holding it in a black hole for 800 years, 900 years.
True. I mean, I did love Burnham's subtle communication to Rayner. And when Tilly was like, I have no idea what that was about. And Rayner's like, I do. We're going to do this. Did you hear what Tilly said?
I don't remember it.
I had to turn on the captions when Rayner's like, where she's going to blast into space and we're going to tractor beam it. And Tilly said, holy schnoodles. SHNOODLES. Schnoodles.
That is familiar. And it was not Ken censoring it.
Correct. Like this, I'm reading to you exactly what it said in the captions. Okay, so I think what I better understand now, I think what you've helped me understand, is they were waiting for the portal to be out in space before capturing it. And by the time they went to do so, it had opened up and was no longer tractorable.
Right.
Or there was too much debris.
Yeah.
Okay.
As we found out, there was tractorable.
Yeah.
In the next episode.
So weird. That's all I got about Lagrange point.
Yeah, Discovery going into the base of Maul continues to be one note in this episode.
I do have a question about that.
Yeah.
Maul has a portable pattern buffer.
Uh-huh.
I have two observations about that. One is this would make physical transport of almost anything so much easier. Like, oh, we have a whole pallet of self-sealing stem bolts here. Let's just put it on this little chip and we'll hand it over to somebody. Or like a great way for currency. Like, here's this chip, it has 20 people on it. Here's this chip, it has 50 platinum bars. Like, you can just compress anything down into a portable pattern buffer. And it just seems like we should be seeing that more often.
Yeah, it hasn't been until modern era of Trek, this new era of Trek. I want to say this era because the time difference in the series are all where that's even a possibility. Because even when like Scotty did it, that was seen as this. Of course, Scotty comes up with this thing that couldn't be done, and then and that's been left as that for 25, 30 years, in real life time. And all of a sudden, here in Strange New Worlds, we discover that Dr. Mbenga actually has been doing this secretly for a bit. But again, for him, it seems like this is things that you don't normally do for reasons. And then all of a sudden, here, jump 900 years in the future from Strange New Worlds TOS era. This seems to be a plausible thing to do. And so if we were to take the in-universe explanation, something happened in those 800, 900 years to make it something that is safe to do. Apparently, it was not something you could do long-term with people or cargo. They even did it on Voyager, but very short-term. They're hiding some empaths.
Oh, that's right.
From the Bernari, was it? Whatever it was. Or was it Bernari? Anyway, either way. There's always a short-term prospect. So apparently, if we want to explain it in universe, something did not make it feasible for either real matter or living or not dead, but something has changed.
And yet she said that she wanted to keep him safe. So she wears the pattern buffer on her wrist, not like in a pocket.
In a pocket. I was thinking that too today.
Right? Like, oh, anybody could just accidentally punch your dead boyfriend into a million pieces.
Out of universe, it's something they just apparently didn't think of. And like, it made me think when you brought it up here, but you think of someone has figured out in Dungeons and Dragons, in the 5th edition, it is more feasible to like, go long distance travel to kill a person, and then because there are spells, revivify, 300 gold to diamond. Kill someone. Do the spell that holds the body, spare the dying, so they don't decompose. And then when you get to your point, if it's really far away, just cast a revivify on them. 300 gold. There you go. Where now you don't have to feed them. You don't have to do anything. You can just store them in crates, It's
That's awful.
it's awful, but it's funny. Like in a universe where magic is possible, these are the things you think of to save money or make it easier on people themselves.
Right. Yeah, just put him in the pattern buffer.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, I did say dead boyfriend. I should have said dead husband.
Oh yeah.
Anything else about this, or shall we move on to life itself?
Yeah, we get Vulcan or Serena, and then and President's like, hey, we gotta get what's her butt to slow down and not go there. And that's kind of next some of the stuff in this episode, which was just mentioned here. But no, we can just go to life itself.
Cool. So I
I
want to start.
think
Oh, go ahead. What?
I'm gonna say I think we should separate this into 2 episodes. Would you be okay with that?
Sure.
In our heads here for discussion.
Yeah, obviously the same Transporter Lock podcast.
Yeah.
But let me start by saying this was the series finale, and you brought up a very interesting statistic that you texted to me, which I then pulled up the numbers to confirm, which is Discovery ran for only 5 seasons. There are several interesting things about that. This is the first time since 2001 that a Star Trek show that lasted more than 4 seasons has gone off the air. This is the first time a Star Trek show has lasted exactly 5 seasons. This is the first time since, let's see. No, that's not true. Well, what you had brought up to me was, okay, so it ran for 5 seasons. What does that mean in terms of duration? So it only lasted 65 episodes, which is not a lot. If I were to compare that with other shows from Star Trek, then this is the 6th longest running show. TNG had 178, DS9 176, Voyager 172, Enterprise 98, the original series 79, and then Discovery with only 65. It's kind of hard to incorporate Strange New Worlds, Prodigy, and Lower Decks into this calculation because those shows are still running. But so far, Lower Decks has 40 episodes, Picard has 30, the animated series has 22, and both Prodigy and Strange New Worlds have 20. So Discovery's right in the middle. But to your point, what about time? How long these shows have run? Because once upon a time, network television meant one season was 1 year, and it pretty much followed the calendar and it was very predictable. Well, if we look at a number of days from the very first episode to the very last episode, then we have some very different numbers. At the bottom of the list is the animated series, 399 days. Then we have Prodigy, Strange New Worlds. The original series ran 999 days, 1 day short of 1,000. Both Lower Decks and Picard ran exactly 1,183. Both of them, but Lower Decks is still going. Then we have Enterprise at 1,325. And now we get into the 7-year shows. Voyager, DS9, and The Next Generation. Voyager ran 2,319. Deep Space Nine, 2,341. The Next Generation, 2,429 days. And at the top of the list is Discovery, which has only 65 episodes, about a third as many as TNG, but it ran for 2,440 days, 11 days longer than TNG.
Yes, all that starting to say like Discovery is the longest running Star Trek show by production time.
It is the longest running Star Trek show.
Thank you, pandemic, I guess.
Yeah, that was definitely a part of it. I'm sure the writer's strike last year may have been a part of it as well. But whew. Yeah, when I met so many of the actors at Dragon Con last September, they had finished filming the last season, but it hadn't aired yet. It was hard for me to see these actors and realize that they were done playing those roles. They weren't.
Well, we didn't know yet. They didn't cancel until this year.
That's true. That's true. I forgot about that.
They thought they were just done with the season.
No, wait, that's not true. That we knew this like over a year ago.
I thought it was this spring.
This spring is when we found out they were canceling Lower Decks.
Was it last spring? I just confusing my year.
It was last spring of 23.
Confusing my year.
Yep. So when I went to Dragon Con, Discovery was already canceled. Yep. Anyway, just a little interlude there. We can talk about life itself now.
Yeah, let's talk about the season finale aspect first.
Wait,
To me,
you mean the last half hour?
no, to me, these are two episodes in one.
Yeah.
The first hour and change, basically the season finale, and then
Okay.
the edition was the series finale.
Oh, okay. So you want to talk
Here.
about the season finale?
To me, it was yeah. That's how I'm phrasing it.
Sure. No, that makes sense because when they filmed it, that's what they thought it was.
Yeah. I pulled up the webpage to help me remember the things I just watched today and a few days ago, but no one has written a synopsis. So yeah, gosh, okay, I'm gonna start with a story. I I always watch Star Trek first thing Thursday morning because I don't want to get spoiled because of internet. I wake up early for it, and on Thursday morning, I was sleeping. I have my alarm set for 6:20. I was sleeping, and I'm like, what is that noise? And I wake up and I hear a lawnmower going. I'm like, did I sleep in? I'm exhausted. What is going on? And I start laying there awake, getting more and more awake. I'm like, that is a lawnmower. Where is it coming from? Couldn't be my neighbor to that way. He just mowed his lawn last night before our bed. The apartment buildings across the way, they don't have a lawn. Then I'm like, get up and like, oh no, it's my newish neighbor from Louisiana attached to this house. He was up there at 10 or 5:50 in the morning mowing his lawn.
Hmm.
That is one, that is against the ordinances here in Fargo. Two, who's mowing their lawn that early in the morning? So I went up there and gave him a what for. I never do that. I gave him a what for, and he was like shocked and awed that there was a rule about when you can start mowing. Turns out it's actually 6 a.m., but I thought it was 7 a.m. But also, like, this set my mood for the day. Or at least for the morning. So I got like, oh, go make my coffee, like I always do. Star Trek. Like, I was in a sour mood watching the finale and watching this episode. I wasn't impressed at all for a good share of it. And I was like, okay, maybe this is because I'm cranky. I'm gonna watch this again before we record, or at least even within a few days, even if we weren't recording, to see if that changed things on me. So I'm gonna say my first impression was less than impressed, and upon rewatch, not as less than impressed with some of the things in there. Talk about the season finale aspect, the series finale aspect also kind of annoyed me the other day, but that changed. So yeah, I was underwhelmed by this episode at first viewing, and just whelmed by the second viewing for the season finale aspect. Did you have any feelings walking away from the season finale aspect? Because I was seeing online everyone was loving it.
There were two things about it I didn't like, but there were also moments that had me gasping and literally in tears. And not because I was laughing, not that kind of tears.
Mm-hmm. The season
Uh,
finale part.
Yes, the first hour. Yes.
Okay.
And those moments, the moments that I enjoyed, were so powerful
Uh-huh.
that although I am disappointed with the other two things I didn't like, I still thought it was a great episode. If we're going in chronological order, because there's something at the beginning I didn't like, and there's something at the end I didn't like, and all the stuff in the middle was great.
What was the beginning part that you didn't like? And I will add mine.
So you and I have talked about how sometimes Discovery moves a little bit too fast, and at least me, I get confused and I don't understand what's happening. Kind of like, why didn't they grab the portal out of the tractor bay beam or whatever
Uh-huh.
words? Well, in this case, it was, how does this interdimensional portal area work, and why are they spending so much time on it? For example, Burnham shows up and she starts messing around with these different portals. I was like, that's not your mission, Michael. Stay on target. But she spends time in there and she puts her hand in and she gets pulled in somewhere. And oh, this, of all the infinite Iconian portals that happen to be here, she falls into the one that has two other Breen in it. Like, they could have landed anywhere, but no, they went to this one. And they make a big point of her waiting for hurricane winds to jump out. But then she and Maul go in and out of all the others like it's easy. At one point, they're fighting in a lava field. And then when they come back, they're back in the main corridor with no explanation for how they got out, if they jumped up through the ceiling or whatever. And they're flipping off these barriers, like there's no gravity. And all of a sudden, out of, again, all these infinite portals, oh, this one has negative space. When we touch it, it reveals everything. And I'm like, what does any of this mean? None of this makes sense. Oh, and at one point, Michael says, like, Michael attacks Maul. And that's when they start jumping through worlds and worlds and fighting. And then Michael says, we're never going to get anywhere if you keep attacking me.
That stuck out to me like a sore thumb too.
It's like, Michael, take your own advice. Did something get left on the cutting room floor? Do you forget who started this?
Yeah,
so all of that really annoyed me.
That whole fight sequence. I watched the episode twice. I couldn't watch it because I was so not interested. That was a moment where I just kept like finding myself looking at my phone or petting my cat, like just looking away. Because I'm like, okay, we get it. Maul is on a one-track mission. She's got a one-track mind. Michael, you started this fight. Like, I didn't mind Michael poking and prodding and touching things, trying to learn how this all works, because she didn't know yet at that point either. That part didn't bug me. But the fight scene felt so superfluous and so useless and pointless to me. I hated it. That was the first thing that maybe I think this episode made me start losing interest straight away. The first time I watched it. The Lawnmower Morning, we'll put it that way.
And there have been plenty of cartoons I've seen, most recently Invincible, where a fight rages across multiple dimensions. The second Doctor Strange movie did it too. And that's kind of cool, but it wasn't here. And maybe the budget of a MCU movie or the flexibility of animation allows you to do it better, but Discovery just didn't do it well.
It didn't serve a point, really. If there was a point to it, cool, whatever. But it didn't serve a real purpose at all in the grand scheme of things. The next thing on Lawnmower Morning that set me off was Discovery was being chased by Breen fighters.
I think I know where you're going with this. Go on.
And they were like, how are we going to get rid of them all? And they're like, I've got it. The same thing that every sci-fi show uses to get rid of a bunch of fighters. Go into the plasma field and blow it up. Brilliant. I never would have thought of that. And then they do it. I'm like, that was like, this is used all the time. Why are you acting like this is some super secret thing? In just like sci-fi shows. Like you always lose them in the plasma or the or some kind of thing, like a space thing, like anomaly. And like this was okay. I just like how everyone was excited about it, as if this was a novel idea on Lawnmower Morning, set me off.
They used the same trick in Star Trek Nemesis, didn't they?
It was Nemesis or Insurrection with one of the two.
Oh, Insurrection. You're correct.
But so it just annoyed me. I was like, okay, this is nothing new, and it did nothing for me once again. Like, okay, that was Lawnmower Morning feeling.
Here's what bothered me about that scene. It didn't bother me enough that I probably wasn't going to bring it up because I think I forgot about it. But since you brought it up, let me piggyback on that. They're flying through this plasma and they ignite it behind them. Did none of the Breen think, hey, let's ignite it in front of us while Discovery is flying through it?
I thought that on my rewatch. Like, wait, why don't they just do that first?
Yeah. I mean, so many Breen have to be stupid for this to work.
Yeah. The Breen. We had talked about how Locke had mentioned, like, you don't understand us. There's no way you can negotiate with us. All that before. And it turned out, yeah, you can. They're just like us, just angrier.
Exactly. Yep.
I had a thought today. It almost seemed like sounds like the Strange New Worlds writers but like came with the better idea first. That was the Gorn. The Gorn, Discovery was trying to treat the Breen like they are the Gorn, where you can't understand them. But Strange New Worlds did it first with the Gorn, because they are so alien and reptile. And where Breen are just like us, just with spacesuits on. Just easier to set off.
At some point in my Star Trek career, I used to confuse the Gorn and the Breen because, begins with a consonant, has an R and some vowels, and ends in N. And it's one syllable. Okay, how do I tell them apart? Maybe the writers forgot how to tell them apart too.
Maybe that was I thought there was like, oh yeah, the Gorn are doing what the Strange New World or Discovery people wanted the Breen to be like for a while there. But that was just a random thought. So that was the Lawnmower Morning again, not feeling it.
Let me say one thing about this episode to offset the lawnmower. I loved everything about this episode that was not happening in the portal.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Okay.
like I loved Rayner at the helm. I loved him being like, this is just like the Avalanche. The mission changed. Michael saw it and I didn't. Now, granted, Rayner had been a captain for decades. He should know how to adapt to a scenario. This shouldn't be something he's learning at this point in his career. But still, he was like, the game's changed. Let's go pick off all the fighters. I thought that was cool.
He showed him as a very good captain.
Yes, I agree. I love everything with Nan in it. I'm so glad she came back for the finale. You know, even though her part was small, that she was like, she and Sue were like, Discovery is family to us. We have to be the ones to volunteer on this mission. The president can't make us, but we're going to go do it. Or the admiral can't make us.
I want to slow on that one. Yeah, I love the Suru part. And Nan was there to play the security officer who said, I'm hailing them. They're not responding. Like the Worf would do automatically immediately. That was her job this time to play Worf, where if they don't reply in the half second, say they're not responding. And Saru's like, hold on. If you watch Star Trek, they always do that. No response. Like, give them a second to get to the console. But Saru was so good at speaking to the Primarch and Primarch Zelda, we're calling her now. The way his tone, like how was not reassuring, how confident he was and how to negotiate, and his whole "I am a predator" line was scary and awesome at the same time. Like that was I like that too, even on Lawnmower Morning.
I like that this is not the Saru we saw in season 1. Like this was the culmination of his evolution as a character and as a species.
Yeah.
And that was awesome because he says he's a predator, not historically. Like his people were bred for food.
Oh, you know? Having more of a recent rewatch of Discovery season 3. No, it turns they were predators, and the other species basically.
No, right.
So they were predators.
No, I get that.
Okay.
But when the show started, when Discovery started, at that point,
they didn't know that.
They were not predators. They were not being allowed to behave as predators. And so I love that he has embraced his genetic heritage. And yeah, I love all the different negotiating tactics he played here. Like when they first hung up and he said, she's giving me all the information I need. And I was like, wait, what? Holy schnoodles, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know what the plan is here. So.
Holy schnoodles, there was a scene I laughed at inside the portal where they open up the field to see where they're going to go. And Michael's just like, wow. And Maul's like, holy shite. It was a very real response that it felt authentic. It was like the most authentic Maul has been in episodes.
Well, going back to that moment when they first start going through the field, they addressed what I thought may have been an inconsistency that we talked about on this podcast, which was sometimes they're saying 6 scientists found the technology. Sometimes they're only saying 5 scientists found the technology. And then they come to the pile of rocks, and that's where one of the scientists died. Aha! There were 6 that discovered it, but only 5 escaped, which is why there are only 5 clues.
Aha!
Everything makes sense now. I withdraw my objection, Your Honor.
Maybe that first person must have been the one who failed to solve the 3rd grade puzzle.
Yeah, that was disappointing.
My brain went to the puzzle. My brain went to like, maybe it wasn't meant to be a puzzle, but like, shoot, let's make a riddle out of this. So whoever coming here, like, it's not supposed to be super secret, but we got this. Let's make it a puzzle just to add another layer to it, make it confusing, and make them pause for a little bit longer. And it's like, what we got? Make a. No, don't make a triangle. make it out of it. No, make it with it. There we go. No, like
I mean, yes, there are probably infinite shapes and arrangements and combinations and permutations, but realistically, there's like two. There's a big triangle and there's a big negative space. And Maul decided not to listen to Michael, and she did the wrong one. And yeah, that was weird. It should have. I don't understand what the consequences of that were. Like, it started drawing energy from the black hole to power the safety mechanism, which is just to paralyze her with electricity. That was weird.
yeah. And while they're figuring that out, the next thing that annoyed me, which should have been cool, on Thursday morning, on Lawnmower morning, was they're like, all right, let's do a saucer separation. I'm like, well, you can do what? But my brain went to, of course you can, because this is a season finale, and all of a sudden we just need you to do it. Like, I got so mad that this is the time we reveal it. That's changed since then, but at the time I got annoyed, because like, of course you can do that.
Well, even the TOS Discovery, I'm sorry, the TOS Enterprise could saucer separate. We just
Yeah.
never saw it.
Yeah.
And this ship is from that era, so it made sense.
I don't think it didn't make sense. I was just like, this has not been mentioned at all. And all of a sudden you can do it now? Sure. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
I was just annoyed at the writing. Like, again, in hindsight, that has changed, but I was annoyed then.
But that's before all that happened, Michael meets a progenitor.
Uh-huh.
And I was disappointed it was not the same progenitor from TNG.
Dead, isn't she?
Is she?
The actor?
Is she?
Because it was the changeling woman. I thought she died.
I mean, you are correct. It was the female changeling, played by Salome Jens, who is still alive.
Okay.
She is now 89 years old.
That's
so
probably why it wasn't her.
maybe she's
That's
not
what I'm
acting
thinking.
anymore. Maybe she's retired. But most recently, she lent her voice to the video game Star Trek Online as the female changeling. That was 6 years ago. So it was 6 years and it was just her voice. Maybe she's not up to acting anymore, but I was hoping it would be her.
Yeah, my first thought was, wait, is this the same person who plays Michael's mom?
That occurred to me as well. I thought it might be Michael with heavy makeup or Michael's mom or some sort of projection from her psyche to make her like her.
Looked a lot like Michael's mom, where I was confused at first. I was like, wait, is Michael's mom a progenitor? Just taking her image? What's going on here? To that level of familiarity before I realized, no, they're not going with that at all.
She is the Michael.
Yeah. But progenitor, yeah. I mean, I love the reveal that this is even progenitor tech. They found it. Like, yeah, we don't know who we just found it and figured out how to use it. That was a fun reveal.
Why is it fun?
I just thought it was neat. Like, that was something that did not even occur to me as a possibility. Everyone for 30, 40 years has put 30 years has put emphasis on progenitors. The progenitors did this. They are the ones who seeded all life. They are the ones who are most important. They built this and they seeded all life in the galaxy as we know it. Life as we know it. And all of a sudden, like, oh no, we found it too. So that just adds another level of mystery. I enjoyed it. It sounded fun.
It does sort of devalue, to a degree, not entirely, the progenitors themselves.
Maybe that's what needed to be done.
Maybe. It was interesting to me, though, that when Michael found the progenitor tech, I mean, there were a lot of implications here. One is that she asked, can this bring the dead back to life? And they said, well, we can make a genetic clone, but it won't have its memories, its soul. Like, we can kind of already do that now in the 21st century. And I'm sure, like in DS9, we saw cloning. I remember Odo capturing a murderer and saying, killing your clone is still murder.
We saw it in Enterprise as well.
Oh, that's right, with Trip.
Really good episode.
Yeah.
Just thought it was. I don't know if it holds up.
Okay, so the progenitor tech can't bring the dead back to life. It can clone people. It can probably make new organisms, which by the year 3100, we can probably do anyway with like genetic splicing. So what exactly can the progenitor tech do that we can't?
The difference is scale and time. She mentioned that they can speed up and slow it down. They basically have dials to crank it up.
Okay.
And they can do it at a galactic level, not just small scale.
Because I remember Michael saying this could be used to create an army. I'm like, have you ever seen the Clone Wars?
Not seeing the Dominion.
Right. I mean,
No, it's the scale of it.
I guess. Yeah, it's the more I learned about the progenitor technology, the less powerful it seemed.
Maybe that's how it should be.
Sure. And then that was true for Michael as well. They all thought it could bring the dead back to life, and it turns out it can't. So that was, oh, okay. Big disappointment there. But yeah. But I before Michael leaves the progenitor, this is probably my favorite scene in the season finale. The progenitor is talking about what drives people. For some, it's connection. For some, it's the capacity for change. For some, it's mystery. And it shows a very important person in the Star Trek Discovery crew for each adjective, for each drive that she mentions.
Mm-hmm.
And I love thinking of these characters as avatars for those values and how it brings them all together. And they each bring their own unique purpose for living to the show and to each other. And I really liked that. I found it very powerful. And then it culminates in the scene you were alluding to, where they, like, just moments before, Rayner had asked, if we remove all the safeguards, all of them, can the spore drive jump something that isn't Discovery? And everybody's like, no, absolutely not. Well, and then, like, within 5 minutes, it's not like we need 3 hours to reprogram everything. It's like, no, we can do this right now. And they do it. And seeing him in slow motion say, now, and then we start to see a green dreadnought spinning around. And nobody on the Breen ship has any idea what is happening, what is about to happen, and it works. And that just freaking blew my mind. And one of the next scenes after that is Saru. He throws his arms out wide and then brings them in together to clap because he's like just so happy that everybody is safe now. But in the moment, it looks like he's just throwing his arms out wide as if to say, what the just happened? Because they didn't tell him what they were going to do. They said, get the scout ship close to the dreadnought. That's all they said. And all of a sudden he's like, I didn't know we could do that.
One more morning, I was very annoyed about the saucer separation thing all along, but the result I thought was a lot of fun. And Raider was like, and they're like, where should we send him? Like the edge of the galaxy. I thought that was cool. The whole effect of sending the Breen there, him like and telling them where to go. And now we got Star Trek Breen Voyager.
That occurred to me.
But that was really cool. So not everything pissed me off on Lawnmower Morning, but
yeah, and even that small moment where Rayner said it'll take them a couple of decades to get home, but they'll be alive. That's more than they gave my family.
Yeah, that was so good.
Yeah.
And even when the progenitor was like, here's how you turn it off or come back, whatever, and Michael's like, it's that simple. And she's like, sometimes the important things are. You're like, yeah.
Yep. And before Michael goes back, she sees all of history.
Yeah. And in other shows that would blow the person's mind or make them realize how small they are.
I do wish that, similar to the very series finale for Enterprise, at the very end, we had 3 different captains of the Enterprise giving to seek out new life and new civilizations spiel. And I loved how that thread ran through Star Trek. And they showed that in Enterprise, that this is not just a discrete moment, ship, captain. This is a legacy. It's a lineage. I kind of wish they had somehow incorporated some previous Star Trek footage into that video montage that Michael experienced, whether it was from the opening credits of Enterprise or something. I don't know.
Maybe with how much we have seen the nostalgia lately of that old era, or even within Discovery itself, like seeing Spock in Picard, we saw everything come back in season 3 as a band back together thing. Maybe that's overplayed by now. And instead here we get nods to it. within the music, within like I say, how like Lower Decks is the Leo pointing meme of all the Star Trek references,
Yeah,
and even Kovich's office here.
we'll get to that. Yep.
We'll get that in a moment here. Maybe maybe it was right that we didn't. Like I even you could hear like each at various points. I'm told you could hear various parts of music from each series. Um, I didn't catch that. Music isn't usually the thing I notice at first until different watchings, a score or anything like that. But this time, I did hear a bit of the DS9 theme.
When?
It was not in an appropriate moment. I just heard it. It was when they're putting the triangle puzzle together.
Oh,
I could hear a bit of the opening, or the bit of the opening horn. I couldn't
awesome.
replicate it, but I'm not good at music. Like that's the okay. I actually heard it. So apparently they did that throughout the episode. I just couldn't tell you like when or where.
Hmm.
Um,
Speaking of which,
so I
did you
can't help you.
notice the opening credits for this episode?
You know what? Every time I watch a season or series finale, like if I'm binging it on Netflix or something like that or some show, for whatever reason, I've always taken the time, if I skip the intro, to watch it even on the last episode. And I'm glad I did here. They had the fun thing of putting all the entire runs, credits, parts of it into this one.
Yeah, I didn't even like at first like subconsciously was like, "Oh, that's a cool shot. How did I miss that before?" And then they brought in the Red Angel. I was like, "Oh, now I see what they're doing because that's season 2."
Uh-huh.
I get it now. Yeah.
And then continue the show, we get the Greenway, yeah.
There was the moment in the shuttlecraft with Book and Culber.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I didn't have a feeling on it. But I was like, why is Culber having um uh trail memories when Adira never does?
I have thoughts about Adira, but speaking of all the fan nostalgia and the callbacks, why do you know the frequency? Right? I'm a doctor, not a physicist.
Yeah, that was great.
Just throw it in there. And they didn't even know this was the series finale when they filmed that.
Uh-huh.
But it was so perfect. And it makes sense to me that he has this memory. I thought it was really cool. I liked it.
Yeah, that was good. Maul, the ending for Maul.
Wait,
Oh,
sorry, just
uh-huh.
I forgot one more thing.
Uh-huh.
Book and Culber did a fist bump in
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
shuttlecraft. And it wasn't the only fist bump in this episode, but I don't remember ever seeing a fist bump anywhere else in Star Trek. Maybe Lower Decks, but yeah, I'm glad to know that that gesture still exists.
It just reminded me of a someone being very angry on the internet the other day. It was on for Lagrange point. The the new pilot and con officer. Their names took me 4 seasons to learn the other ones, Obo and Detmer, and now no, but they changed them up. But anyway, they made a comment about I'll buy you a drink, like when you do something where you fly with these black holes,
Right?
and someone on Reddit got like, you live in this century, you don't have money. Why does this expression still exist? And I'm like, dude, I don't usually reply to people, but I'm like, dude, even now we have say expressions that don't make sense, like in the limelight, film a movie, like hold your horses, like they don't make sense or make much sense. Like we still do it now. It makes perfect sense to say I'll buy you a drink then, and he's like, no, it's not. He was like so mad that they said I'll buy you a drink,
But
and ignoring like the Ferengi and Gold Press Platinum and all that.
that's just the thing. There is still money in the future. Even Riker had credits at Quark's bar.
Yeah, like even forgetting that, because it's always like a utopian society. Like we're told that they have no money multiple times in Star Trek, even if we know it's not true. But, like, so this guy was just so mad that they held on to this phrase for 1,000 years, and now like, and then you can explain it away. It
Yeah.
was like there is money still. It's like they were wrong on so many levels. If there's that's why internet annoys me, and I have markings for pedants and wang rods and everything like that on Reddit, so I know who's said stupid things before.
I have so much I could say about people on the internet. but we should focus on Discovery.
Yeah. Well, I since we're still at the season finale aspect, by the end, don't care one bit about her and Locke. Especially these last few episodes, they did nothing for Maul to me. She was so one note, just like Primarch Rune. Um, uh, I can understand why she was so focused on getting Locke back. That's not in question for me, but no depth at all. She's like, oh, I gotta get the triangle. I'm gonna put the triangle wrong. I'm zapped. I'm hurt apparently. I'm taken out. I don't know. All of a sudden, Michael comes out of there. Like, can you bring him back? She's like, no. And that's the last we see of her until she wakes up in sick bay. And really, and I don't know if it's because of the series finale happened or if it was Discovery writing happened, but there was no. I wish we could have gotten some closure and something for her besides Kovic being like, I can use her in the future after she's done with jail. There was no closure at all.
I agree. I don't care if this character goes to jail. Like, there's nothing redeeming about them. Like, oh, I did it all because I loved my husband and I wanted to bring him back. And Michael's like, okay, I lost somebody. I got them back. I'll help you get somebody back.
I can get that.
Yeah, like Michael is the hero there. I'm empathetic with Michael, not empathetic with Lal because, like you said, like she was just biting off every word and wearing her goth makeup. And I'm not against goth makeup, but she really embodied so little.
Yeah. Uh, lack of it actually being a villain. Like no villain energy. But that's that she's supposed to be a villain. She was just the antagonist. And by the end, like, okay, we didn't get to see even. I wish we could have maybe gotten her to say goodbye to Locke, or understanding, or getting that closure of goodbye finally. Nothing. She's just like, I heard my brig has a window. Like,
Yeah,
books like maybe you won't hate the name Cleveland Booker anymore. And she's like, haha, cut away.
maybe now that your husband is dead, you'll be less resentful that your father abandoned you.
Yeah.
What?
Like,
Book? I mean, I know she's not in a mood for a speech, but at least make it a good one.
that just annoyed me that we didn't get to see a resolution to Maul.
Yeah.
To me, this season was just as much her story, her and Locke's story, as it was Discovery's, and the writers seemed to forget that by the end.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
We cut away to let's go to the wedding real quick. No, let's go to Kovic. That was next.
Well, no. There was a big thing beforehand, which was Michael's decision of what to do with the progenitor tech.
Yeah, that was what basically you've been mentioning, especially the whole season. If we get it, we can't keep it. Like, this isn't a secret. This is going to happen, right?
Yeah. So even though to a degree we predicted this, when Michael said we need to let it go, I'm like, let it go could mean a lot of things. What you actually meant was destroy it. Because you said you put it beyond the event horizon. That's where things get destroyed. Like things get stretched to infinity and are irrecoverable because things don't come out of a black hole,
Well,
except maybe Hawking radiation. But
yeah, they basically their explanation was like, hey, whoever built this at first, if they want to come back for it, they can probably get it or rebuild it. That was their explanation for that line.
I don't know. I feel like
basically destroying it.
I mean, there was value in what Michael did on this mission, which was she prevented the Breen and any other civilization with nefarious intent from getting the technology. Great. That is valuable. I agree with that. I'm not sure that destroying it was the right decision. I feel like there is stuff they could have learned from it, especially the Iconian gateways, given that they're trying to wean themselves off of dilithium with this whole Pathfinder or Pathway ship drive, whatever. Why not examine those portals at least? And also, it's unclear to me if the progenitor who was in there was like, it seemed like she was alive from 4 billion years ago and was able to communicate with Michael. But if there was actually part of her in that portal, did they just kill a progenitor?
She had mentioned like we are extinct, and apparently it felt like a spirit that was both 4 billion years ago and now. It was all kind of wishy-washy.
Yeah, but like the progenitor said to Michael, it's your decision what to do with this. And if Michael had said, I'm going to destroy it, the progenitor is like, well, not that. You can do anything else, but not that. I mean, and also the 6 who found it, they could have destroyed it and they didn't. And I feel like they're dishonoring their wishes. The scientists said, we want to wait until the galaxy is at peace for you to find this. And that wasn't the case. I probably never will be. Ugh.
I don't know about dishonoring, as in came to a different decision, realize this is bigger than us. Or Michael felt this was bigger than us.
The way Michael said, like, oh, I know that Starfleet Command will agree with me. I was like, they sent you on this mission and you think with one phone call you're going to change their mind? I don't know.
Well, Kovich sent on this mission, and she mentioned talking to Vance and the president, so apparently they must outrank Kovich.
I guess.
This is what was coming.
Yeah.
And this is the story device for artifacts like this. This is bigger than us. We need to destroy it. Because if we hide it, this happens again.
Sure. But given what I said about the more I learned about this technology, the less powerful it seems, that makes it a little bit more okay that they destroyed it, because they're like, oh, we lost the ability to clone, which we already have. You know, I can live with that. Like, okay, they can do it on a different scale and on different speeds, but I feel like it wasn't everything it was made out to be.
Yeah, and maybe that's part of our own head too. Like our own head canon of knowing about this for how long, and like, oh wow, this whole thing that we've known for 30 years is back. Like maybe that's part of that's on us too.
Sure.
Putting the importance on it.
Oh wait, one more. I'm sorry, one more question. Do you think the portal and the case that it was in was put between the two black holes by the 6 scientists, or is that where they found it?
I recall like that was where they found it, because it was mentioned about the importance was the primordial black holes and how long it's been here.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. Now we can talk about the wedding.
Let's go to Kovich, because that was next.
Oh, that's right.
We get a red directive. Here you go. Sorry. And we get to reveal who he is when he has a bunch of these artifacts from other Star Trek shows behind him.
So
how did you feel?
Well, who did you think he was going to be?
I didn't know who. Well, I was like, with this infinite realm, like, are they setting him up to be a Q? Was my first thought. Not that that was a good thought. That was my first thought. I was like, is he a Q? But then but I didn't have time to think of it before they revealed it. That was just my first thought. How about you?
That would be interesting if a Q was in Starfleet. I had 2 thoughts. The first 2 artifacts, I think the first one was a bottle from Picard's vineyard, right?
Yeah.
And the second one was Geordi's visor, which is a little macabre in my opinion, because that's almost a body part of his. So there's some connection to TNG there. And I thought, oh, well, maybe Picard's body, his new body, is ageless, despite whatever the warranty said. Maybe this is like 1,000-year-old Picard. That'd be neat. My second thought, I saw a comment on a Facebook group, and I don't think this was a rumor so much as it was one fan's theory. At the end of Lagrange Point, this person wrote, "We're going to see the Cisco."
Oh.
and when at the end of Lagrange Point, they went into this interdimensional portal, kind of like a wormhole. I thought, well, maybe there's the opportunity for the Cisco to show up here. And then they showed the baseball. And I thought, please do not let Kovich be Cisco. Please do not whitewash the first starring black captain in Star Trek. So I never would have thought of this if I hadn't read one person post it on Facebook. But yeah, we find out Sabriel shared the big reveal.
It's Agent Daniels from Star Trek Enterprise.
It is the USS Enterprise.
I like how like confused at first. He said, "Why do you say USS Enterprise?" I guess that's probably what it was renamed to. But why didn't you say NX Enterprise? But we don't know how many enterprises he's been on.
Well, the NX-01 predates the Federation, so wasn't it the USS Enterprise?
Well, we don't. It was the NX-01. It wasn't? Was it USS?
I think so. NX-01 was its code, kind of like Picard.
No. I'm getting what the fandom calls it because to distinguish it. Yeah, it was called that. But yeah, in any case, he clearly has knows what's going on through all space and time. And he mentions how he's lived many lives. I'm like, wow, that's cool. Fun
when
little...
yeah, when he said I've lived many years and many lives,
Uh-huh.
that was an interesting word choice to me. It wasn't a clue, but it definitely caught my attention.
I was in like hindsight, I was like, is he still time traveling even though it's barred? Um, maybe. But then I was like, cool. I was like, oh wow, even on Lawnmower Angry Morning, I was like, that's a neat reveal. I don't know if I needed it, but it was a neat reveal.
I liked it. It kind of makes me want to go back and watch the 3 seasons that he was in with that new perspective. I think it makes sense how he might seem to know things that he doesn't and have things like a legal pad that he
Uh-huh.
shouldn't. I don't think he is still time traveling because, in addition to the temporal cold wars, there were also the temporal wars
Yeah,
and
and it's
time
been barred.
travel. Right. Like, even when Discovery first showed up, they're like, we don't time travel anymore. You shouldn't be here. So I don't think he's time traveling, but I like that it's Daniels. I pulled up the old photo of Daniels in Memory Alpha. I'm like, if I squint, I could see how he could be really old and look like David Cronenberg. I think this is the spoiler you were referring to earlier,
Yeah.
where somebody must have put what, like, Daniel's photo on Kovic's entry or
Yep.
vice
Yep.
versa.
Yep. Uh-huh.
And there's still 2 separate entries, and I'm sure they're debating, like, should we merge these? Would that be a spoiler?
You know what? Apparently for Kovic, I was reading up. This wasn't the original. They didn't have a plan for him. Someone apparently in the writers' room during like one of the head, it was one of the leads. It's like someone was talking about it in season 4 or season 5 writers' room. I was like, this would be kind of a neat idea. So it wasn't even planned when they first had it. So like, and it might not even. This person just could not remember which season they thought of it. And it kind of like a what if? What if we made him Agent Daniels? Like, oh, that's cool. Because it shows they actually do put thought in this thing and this stuff. But it wasn't the original plan. For him, he was just a
Oh.
mystery guy at first.
I just finished watching Steven Universe, all the seasons of it. And going back now, I can see how even the very first episode, they were saying things that were important in the last episode. Like, that author, Rebecca Sugar, had a very clear plan from the
Uh-huh.
beginning, and everything in it was intentional, which I wish they had done with the latest Star Wars trilogy.
Uh-huh.
Like, that was just, oh, let's do a movie. Oh, let's do another one. Oh, let's do another one and call it a trilogy. Like, no, map it out. Come on, people. So, yeah, I am a little disappointed to learn that they didn't plan Agent Daniels from the beginning, but even retroactively, I think it works.
Yeah, it does. Like, even Battlestar Galactica, the whole thing is the
Oh,
Cylons, and they have a plan.
oh,
And
don't tell me. I haven't seen it yet. No
oh,
spoilers.
not a spoiler. It's
Okay.
also it's been 20 years, Ken. You got to watch it. It's not spoiler
I
territory anymore.
Well, for the general fandom, I agree, but since you and I are just on a show talking as friends, I'm asking you, please don't.
But I won't.
Thank you.
um, Kovic.
Yep.
We're gonna once Maul is done with her jail sentence, we're gonna see if she wants to be put to use. Like,
Hmm.
okay. Um, and then the Vulcan wedding. I thought it was beautiful.
I liked it, but I didn't see a lot of Vulcans in attendance.
No, it was all disco crew and random people. I wonder if it was more one of those like in I don't this is where we're starting to get in the territory where I don't know how much of it was part of nope. I can tell you I know this was shot with the season finale stuff for one reason and one reason only. Um Hugh Culber was there. What actor's name? Quick, Dr. Culber, Hugh Culber. You met him. You met him.
Yeah, I know. I'm just not gonna remember his name.
Ah,
Here, let me look it up. Wilson Cruz.
thank you, Wilson Cruz. I found out a week ago he couldn't make it back for reshoots. Uh, because he was working on another project. And so I can tell that this was actually filmed back when they thought this was just a season finale because he's there.
Oh, okay.
Um um and so I can't remember where I was going with that. Oh, my brain was going to like I wonder if it was like an Enterprise when that show ended. When they're showing Archer giving the speech, a lot of the people who are in attendance are actually crew members from the show.
Hmm.
So my brain went to, I wonder if the wedding is a bunch of crew members because you mentioned there's like no Vulcans. Like no, it wasn't the series finale then, so it
Even
couldn't
it,
be it.
even at the end of DS9, when Vic is singing
Oh
to the
yeah,
crew, that's a lot of the production crew in the audience.
uh-huh. And so no, that theory doesn't work because it was the
Okay.
I mean, it could still, because it was a season finale. I guess it could still work, but not as much of a meaning. Anyway,
Yeah.
I didn't catch that. It wasn't very many Vulcans.
I was looking, who here is not clapping and applauding and cheering and laughing? And I'm like, no, everybody is.
Maybe Torino just doesn't have very many close friends.
Maybe they had a separate party for the Vulcans.
Yeah, maybe. Uh, Michael and Book get back together.
Hmm.
And this is before we talked about is that before I say my recap thoughts on
You mean,
when I watched it again today.
yeah, what do you got?
Okay, so yeah, they make up and they get together at the end of the beach. That's cool. All right, whatever. And then they decide not to go back to the wedding when Kovic calls them. Like, come on, Kovic, you know they're at a wedding. Why are you calling them right now? This better be important. But anyway, on my rewatch this morning, I like the season finale aspect a lot more. There were still some things that really annoyed me, like basically the fight between Book or Michael and Maul inside the space was still annoyed the heck out of me, and the lack of resolution from Maul that really annoyed me. The rest of it fun. Things that I talked about annoyed me the first viewing, didn't the second viewing. I was in a much better mood. And it was a fun season ending episode. Except for those 2 points and Maul just being a non-thing. That was disappointment. Also on Thursday, the Lawnmower Day, I was annoyed that I was still expecting resolution on some things like the spirituality and Paul wanting a legacy. I was mad that they did not have anything like that here. Like, if you know it was going to be an ending, why didn't you change anything like that? And then, like, wait, they didn't know they were going to be done yet, so there could have been more seasons to cover that. And all of a sudden, it was cut short. So I was bummed that they introduced its idea, and then we didn't get to see any resolution to it. But overall, my second viewing, almost all the things that annoyed me about my lawnmower cranky morning were much better, and I enjoyed it, basically, as a season finale.
I started off by saying there were two things I didn't like, one at the beginning, one at the end. The thing at the beginning was I just don't understand how that interdimensional portal area works when they're in the corridor. Once they get to the actual tech, that's cool. But yeah, I didn't understand the fights and the whatever. And then at the end, the thing I didn't like was the decision to destroy the tech. And I guess I don't know if I disagree with the decision as much as I disagree with how casually it seemed to have been made.
Uh-huh.
And she's just like, yeah, we need to let it go. And then Paul protests and Rayner says, this isn't about your legacy, Paul.
And that was even Saru yelled at. Like, where have you been all season to even have this idea?
Yeah, they're just when they said the line about the legacy, I was like, oh, they're throwing that in because that's Paul's thing this season. You know, it was just a little weird. But anyway, yeah, the wedding was great. And I like that. Are we ready to start talking about the series finale?
Yeah, let's cut ahead because they had to call everyone back for reshoots for the series finale.
Well, I like that for the most part, the series finale jumps ahead like 30 years because that means if they ever want to go back and do a reunion show like TNG did, if they ever want to write more novels, there's no reason to believe that these episodes don't continue, these adventures. Unlike, say, DS9, where 4 main characters left the station, and yeah, they kept writing novels, but they had to bring in a bunch of new characters to fill those gaps. Or Enterprise, where a main character dies, and yeah, that also jumped ahead a few years, but yeah, I felt like Discovery left the door open because they thought there were going to be more seasons, and there still can be. Like when they went back to do the reshoots, they're like, "Oh, let's set this a day later, and everybody dies." You know, that's sort of a final nail in the coffin. But yeah, I like that they jumped ahead.
Oh yeah, I was also annoyed that we never got to see Olo and Detmer again in the season finale part.
Yes, I thought there's no reason for them not to have been at the wedding.
Massive failing.
Concur.
Yeah, series finale, jump ahead.
Yeah.
And I thought it was good too. Like now we have 30 more years or whatever years of story we can still tell with this crew. And we know Tilly's still alive.
Oh yeah, that's one thing at the wedding. She's like, you know what I
Oh
need back
yeah.
at the academy is a mentorship program. I'm like, Tilly, we have those now. How
Oh,
is
she hasn't
this?
been.
I know, but this is not like a revolutionary idea. Anyway,
Uh, yeah, about how like, hey, we got to figure out what she was. She'd been missing the whole time. And like, okay, yeah, that made sense. It made sense. I mean, sometimes it's too easy to get. It's easy to get set in your way and not see the obvious, right? Even when you're working on things like that. So, it makes sense. We cut ahead in our series finale aspect. It's 30 years later. Michael's waking up, start her day. Like clearly, like I'm like, okay, she's older. How old is she? Like before we actually reveal her, she wakes up in bed and slowly sits up. Okay, she's older. Turns out she has a nice little planet on one of the endangered species planet that book has.
I presume it's the same one where they left Molly in season
Yeah,
3, Sanctuary 4.
yep, that's what it was. Sanctuary 4. I couldn't think of that. But yeah, sanctuary planet or biome, whatever it is.
We got to see the
Um,
world tree.
yeah, beautiful house too. That was a gorgeous house. Um, Amusing what the bee scene and like here's where some of the humor also in where he drops the honey into the thing, expecting it not to fall in, and just the charm of it's like he's like, oh no, now you've got wax and honey in your coffee, and she's like, maybe it's still good. Takes a sip. Nope, it's terrible. It was done so well. It was just their charm and the humor and discovery has never been a failing.
I feel like any tension between those two characters has been totally resolved over those 30 years.
Yeah,
I really do like where they ended up.
and it's such a shame. It's interesting to think like a guy who plays Cleveland Book didn't think he was coming back for season 5. Like, and they decided to bring him back. Like, just wow, how much things would have changed if that wasn't it. Because they're really good together.
Yeah, they are.
Even if all season it made no sense for Book to be there, basically. We find out they had a kid named Leto, who's captain now of a ship.
I was a little surprised that they didn't have a daughter.
Guess we don't know they don't.
It's
But
true.
you mean like for what we show in the show?
Right. We have no reason to believe anything that isn't on screen, so they probably just had the one kid. But just given how focused this show Discovery was on intersectionality, I'm not disappointed. I'm just a little
Uh-huh.
like, oh, they could have gone a different way with that.
Yeah. Oh, the name the space deer Alice, like Alice in Wonderland.
Wait, what is that the name of the shuttle? What?
That was the name of the space deer that she was
Oh,
building the fence in front of. Like, oh yeah. I'm just kind of thinking random thoughts here. Um, like Alice in Wonderland, that was a huge thing in season 2. Really looking gas was that was a story that um
yep.
Michael's mom or Amanda would read to Spock and Michael. Uh, we get to see we fly back. She gives a cool little speech to her son about the captaincy and those pips are pressure, and they're supposed to be. Like, yeah, that was a good speech. That was a fun little speech.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get back to we see Discovery being decommissioned, retro, literally
Retrofitted.
retrofitted,
Yep.
literally,
Yep.
not.
Yep. Yep. She has one last mission, and she's the one to do it. And she goes back on the bridge, and she says hello to Zora. She sits in that chair once again, just like when they had the time bug and they jumped about 30 years into the future and they were on that bridge. And she told Rayner how she felt about the first time she saw that chair. And now it really is 30 years in the future. And this is the last time she'll see that chair. And
Yeah,
she takes a seat and she has a flashback. And this moment crushed me. I was emotionally wrecked. Seeing all the characters come back. We know that Vance and Tilly and Michael and Book are all fine in the future. Who knows what's happened to everybody else in the
hmm
meantime? They could have had storied careers, they could be retired, they could be long gone. But in this moment, I don't know why they're all hugging. I don't know what the occasion was that she's flashing back to. At first, I thought we were going to see old Saru, but as soon as they pan up to him, they're back in the past. It's very golden, like you often remember your past, and everybody's hugging, and they worked Culber in somehow. Now, only since you've
this
told me,
yeah
I
the
know he wasn't
CG.
there. Well, like I I saw that his shot was different. Like it was a
Oh,
close up. It was a one person shot.
yeah, they used his body double, I'm sure,
Hmm.
for most of it, because he was in the background, but not him.
But there was like one prominent shot of him.
Oh yeah, they put his face right
Yeah.
over there,
And Detmer and Owo were back, which was
holding
great.
each other and telling Jet how you could see they're mouthing happy. And I'm like, yeah, they're totally a couple, just like I kept
Oh, I
saying.
missed that. That's great. I like that. It made me think about like I'm sad to know that Culber wasn't actually in that scene because I thought about how at Dragon Con I asked him if I could give him a hug, and he said sure. And now I'm thinking like, oh, I hugged somebody who hugged all these other people. And yeah, what did you think of those moments?
On Lawnmower Morning, I was not moved at all, which is a bummer. That's when I was like really like, God, I gotta watch this again. And when I watched it again this morning, I was tearing up. It was very sentimental and moving. I'm so glad I watched the episode again. That specific moment and just like seeing them all together, and also knowing like that was probably the last time they're all going to be together in this way.
Yeah.
Um, and just thinking like, well, the mood was probably on the set, and that I mean that added to the emotion. Uh,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
in some ways it was very saccharine
Uh-huh.
and intentional. Like I hesitate to use the word manipulative because that sounds negative, but it was also very sincere because as you said, like I remember watching the very last episode of Family Ties,
Hmm.
and at the end of that show, all the actors came out and they bowed, which they would do anyway because it's filmed in front of a live audience. But for that episode, they showed it on the televised episode, and you could see them tearing up because like they've been doing that show for years and now it's done. And
Uh-huh.
same thing with this crew, and that's sad. But I would love to be the one to talk on this podcast about their final mission,
I was like, Ken's gonna be so happy about this.
Discovery's final mission, because I'd really given up hope. I've wondered many times on this podcast, how are they going to resolve Calypso? What about Calypso? What are they going to do with this? And they never did. And here they have one last mission. Michael is going to bring Zora into deep space and leave her there, which on one hand is kind of cruel because Zora is sentient and she's just going to
That's
be
all I could think about.
marooned for a millennium. Uh, Michael overheard that she heard the word craft, and it's funny because that could obviously that's a reference to the character from Calypso.
Hmm.
It could also, as far as Michael knows, be a shuttlecraft. The thing that actually occurred to me, I don't know why, is 3 years ago on this podcast we had a guest named Kraft, and I was like, what does he have to do with? Oh, not that Kraft. Okay, right, Brandon Kraft. Okay. So, speaking of my coworkers, I have a coworker named James who I don't know if this is his theory or something he found on the internet, but Calypso, if I recall correctly, was one of the very first short treks. It aired between seasons 1 and 2.
It was like one of the first season ones, yeah.
Yeah. And all those other short treks, like how Tilly found a friend who ended up being a queen and how Saru escaped off his planet and blah, 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 those all tied directly into season 2. Calypso was the outlier. Calypso is set 1,000 years in the future.
Hmm.
At the end of season 2, they go 1,000 years into the future. So what I'm hearing either from James firsthand or secondhand is Calypso was supposed to be how they get to the future at the end of season 2. The crew was supposed to go to the future separate from the ship. So what was a moment for the crew was going to be 1,000 years for Zora, and she would meet them on the other side. But that didn't happen. After they did that short trek, they're like, oh, wait, we have to go a different way. We have to get them to the future with the ship because we have to remove the sphere data from the playing field by bringing it to the future. And they're like, crap, now that short trek doesn't make any sense. So that's why at the end of this series finale, they retrofitted Discovery to look like it did at the end of season 2,
Uh-huh.
because that's when Zora was supposed to be marooned for 1,000 years, was when it looked like the nacelles were still connected and there was no letter A on the hull.
We changed the context of the Calypso.
Right. And now
Uh-huh.
they had to go back to that context to make this work. And so Michael was probably wondering, why do we have to retrofit it? And Kovic was like, you'll be sorry if you don't. And it makes sense that Kovic is Daniels because now we can say, okay, Daniels knows something about the future because he's a time traveler and he's putting the pieces on the playing field where they need to be.
Uh-huh. So, did you catch what was happening before Michael said, we're going to park you? Like, what point did you go, oh? At what point what point did all the pieces fit for you?
When they had just one mission left, when she was the only one on the ship, when she came back from the flashback and it was just her. And I think when she said craft, I mean, I may have subconsciously thought of something, but once she said craft, I was like, gotcha.
I think just before that, they showed a little Google Nest, a circle with a little voice thing, modulator thing, like showing the computer talking, which we haven't seen in seasons. That's when I started kind of like, for me, the whole time, like, Calypso, 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 and then also Calypso, when that happened. And I was like, aha, they're actually going to do it. Ken's going to be so happy. Was my thoughts. And then I'm like, because I knew they were doing, but I first started thinking that when I saw them scraping off the A of the hull. But I'm like, why are they doing it that way? They did it differently in season 1 when they went to the mirror universe. But anyway, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. But also, like, lettering, my brain goes to this analysis way. But then I'm like, yeah, scraping off the A. So that's when I started going like, oh my God, they're actually going to do it. Or going Calypso, 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 and then Calypso when they showed the little graphic of the computer of Zora talking. On my rewatch. Oh, because knowing it was coming, I was watching for more clues. And on the rewatch, they were flying the shuttle to Discovery, and I saw them scraping off the A. But the nacelles are still not attached. And I'm like, so they, because I know they can reattach them. They did it once in a while. But then at one point they show a reflection of the nacelles in in a window or something like that. And then you could see them attached. It was very subtle. You would not notice it all if you weren't watching for it. And I was like, oh, that's a fun little thing. It was very subtle. If you weren't unless you were watching for it. But yeah, we finally wrapped it up and tied it together, and poor Zora's got to sit there alone for 1,000 years. Which my thought on Angry Lawnmower Morning was like, that's so cruel. You have the sentient computer, and it's gonna make her sit there for a while. But then on the rewatch, Michael mentions, and then you could see basically your family. Like you can see our ancestors, and you can see your family, implying that Zora has been in some way spread to more ships or some other way to another aspect. So Zora, as we know her, has been proliferating.
Interesting. I took that to mean that the Discovery crew was her family.
Oh, they mentioned basically, Michael mentioned Discovery and our descendants and yours. To me, basically, she meant two. To me, she said two distinct separate ones. Like you could see us as your family, and also you can find out what happens to your descendants. In her language. I couldn't repeat the exact wording I didn't write it down, but basically the language implied like there are more Zoras now, or the Zora family.
Interesting. It does make me a little sad that 1,000 years in the future. Well, first of all, we don't know what role Kraft has and why it's important to save him. I assume it's important, but Kraft was fleeing the Vidrash, which we know is another word for the Federation, which was used in season 3, episode 2 of some guy referred to the Federation as the Vidrash. And that implies to me that if Kraft is fleeing the Vidrash, that the Vidrash are sort of the bad guys.
Or at least to him.
Right. And I hate to think that despite all the hope and optimism that almost every Star Trek show ends on, 1,000 years from now, we're the bad guys. That's one interpretation. We don't know that that's what happens. There's a lot of context missing. But I don't know. I like to end
Yeah.
on a high note, not knowing
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, our last mission is to save somebody from us. And also, this ship is going to be parked for 1,000 years without anybody finding it. Yeah, yes, space is a big place, but think about how many times on TNG they're like, "Oh, we found this little probe that was launched by a dead alien civilization 500 years ago. Let's bring it on board." What are the odds that they ever would have found it in the first place?
The only reason we know it works because Daniels knows it.
Right, because we saw Calypso, so we know it works. So nobody else finds Discovery in 1,000 years.
After I rewatched it this morning, actually this morning in my rewatch, I watched the season finale, and then I took a little break by the cats, did some cleaned up, and then I watched the second half as a series finale. I broke it up, which I think you
Nice.
really should do. I think it just improved the viewing experience. And then I also after that watched Calypso, which I haven't seen in a few years, and uh, it's still one of my favorite Star Trek things ever created. I had fun with it. I talked about it then, and also it was rewatching it today. I forgot how actually it was really cute to see Zora flirting.
Yeah.
And just sort of forgotten that that had happened. Like it's been so long since I watched it, and it was just really cute.
Yeah.
So I would say
So
rewatch Calypso if you haven't for a while.
so is Calypso as good now that you know a bit more context?
I didn't change anything at all. I love it still.
Cool.
There's basically no new context other than it's 1,000 years different than we thought. That's the only difference.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it didn't change a single thing about the episode.
Hmm. By the way, Michael's makeup was really well done.
Yeah, I would have known. I mean, if you didn't know, you wouldn't know that she's not that old.
Yeah, and when they start off in 30 years in the future, they're purposely playing with who is this that we see waking up in bed? And we see the telescope that was Georgiou's, but it's a while before we actually see her, and we hardly ever have seen her with that hairdo. And my first thought was, is that Michael? And then she sits in the captain's chair. They do a flashback, and at the end of the flashback, they morph her younger self into her older self.
Oh, you still weren't sure up to that point.
No, I was.
Okay, okay.
No, I mean, obviously, when she's with Book, that I figured it out pretty quickly.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, when they did the morph, it was not an easy morph. Like there is a clear distinction between young and old.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, that really is old Michael. And I can see why I wondered at first, is that Michael? Because it wasn't just morphing one person into the same person. It was morphing
Mhm.
young to old.
And also, damn, her and Book look good and gray.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? I mean, this is
Yeah,
the
it'd be
end
great to
of
have
Discovery,
it'd be great to have the badge, like different outfit in your badge.
right? That was nice. Put on my dress uniform, boom, done. So, yeah, so that's the
Overall,
yeah,
yeah.
overall.
Um Discovery itself had some problems, but it's a really good show. And having watched a lot of it, I watched 2.5 seasons now in a rewatch. Show is, I still say, way better in binge format. Um, Not that anyone who's listening to this is gonna be doing that. You've already watched it probably, but like if you decide to go to rewatch, even if you weren't a really big fan of it, I think it's so much better in hindsight
Hmm.
than week to week. Uh, Discovery is a it was a what brought Star Trek back to TV, and so it'll always have that legacy no matter what you thought of it.
Yeah, you know, when we saw Discovery leaving space dock for its final mission, it reminded me of the Comic-Con 2017 or 2016, yeah, it was 2016 reveal that there was a new Star Trek show coming. It was called Discovery, and all we saw was Discovery leaving a space dock.
That's right.
And I feel like we ended 8 years later the same way that we first learned that Discovery was a name.
Yeah.
And I like that bookend. I don't know if it was intentional because that was just a teaser, but it was nice.
And everybody knew about this red directive mission, and they were sending Discovery off.
Hmm.
I think it's more of we know this is the last flight of Discovery.
It is that we know of. Who knows what Zora does after she rescues Kraft? Because she was told wait for Kraft, and now that she has, she's like, well, now I can do whatever I want.
See you later.
Yeah, sentient ship, just going off doing whatever. So, coming home and finding her descendants and Michael's descendants 1,000 years later.
Uh-huh.
Agent Daniel's still there. But yeah, I really enjoyed Discovery. If I had to pick a favorite season, having only seen each season once, I might guess it was two, which I know you recently rewatched. I have no objection to Michael being the main character of this show. I think Sonequa Martin Green did a great job with her. I thought the cast was, at times we were frustrated by not knowing everybody on the bridge. And sometimes when we got their backstory, it was very forced and ham-handed. But I still like the characters. I like how they dealt with PTSD in season 3, which we don't really see in Star Trek. And yes, it was abbreviated, but they still dealt with it. I love the diversity. So many women, so many people of color, non-binary, LGBTQIA. It was great to see. So, because Star Trek has lacked that for a long time.
For how much the show has been praised about diversity, you can realize in hindsight how little diversity there had been still.
They certainly had certain kinds of diversity, which in the era in which those shows aired was important.
Uh-huh.
But now we have more diversity in the real world now that we are willing to acknowledge than we did 40 years ago. And now this is the Star Trek show that acknowledged it.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. So we bring a close to that chapter, and there's another chapter that's closing today.
Yeah, I'm being promoted and going to a different ship. No.
No, you are. You're not taking Kirk's advice to Picard in the ribbon. You are allowing yourself to be promoted to Admiral.
No, I think about declining it and just taking a different ship.
Okay.
Or an Admiral, you can take any ship you want. But
well, wait a minute. We talked about you launching another ship, and I don't know how I feel about that.
Probably Starbase. No, not going anywhere. No. I'll say I've decided I'm just done with the podcast. Maybe done with podcasting. At least for the time being. I have no other future plans. Just all right, with the end of Discovery, we started with Discovery, and ending Discovery felt like a good time for me.
This was originally Transporter Lock, a Star Trek Discovery podcast.
Yeah.
We had no idea that there would be Picard, Strange New Worlds, Prodigy, and Lower Decks. It's become a lot more than we expected, and we have loved almost every minute of it. We've loved what we've accomplished here.
Met a lot of great people.
Yeah, and spent a lot of good time with some good friends.
Absolutely. We don't know the future of Transporter Lock still, but if it continues, I can guest here and there.
That'd be awesome. I've been podcasting since 2011, continuously without interruption for 13 years. This is the only show I have right now, and I don't want to start another one at this point in my life. So I don't think I'm ready to give up that part of my identity. But this has been a really good experience for me. And
me too,
I'm really grateful to you. So thank you.
You as well, Ken. And thank you. Thank you for doing all the editing, putting it all together, getting all the hosts. Ken has been 98% of all the work behind the scenes. I just come here to talk for an hour and a half, and Ken does all the work.
Well,
literally all of it.
The hardest part of this job the easiest part of this job was making you look good, because you know everything about Star Trek that I don't. So I just show up and I'm your foil.
Happy to share my Star Trek knowledge. I know way too much of things that don't matter.
Well, having a podcast made it matter. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Until next time.
Let's fly.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on iTunes and keep your hailing frequencies open by following us on Twitter @TransporterLock or subscribing to our podcast and email newsletter at transporterlock.com.
There was one thing actually I meant to mention about Discovery, where at the end, Adira says to Paul, hey, you had a good mission, and that's all you can control. And Paul says, when did you get so smart? And I'm like, they're a 500-year-old Trill. That's when they got smart.
But everyone forgets their Trill.